Welcome, I'm Deb Shepard. I'm your host of Spirited Straight Talk. Thank you for joining me on this amazing spiritual journey that we call life. You're in the right place and you didn't land here by accident. My intention is to help you learn to free yourself of things that are holding you back and create a life that truly makes your soul happy. I'll be talking about key insights and interesting topics to help you learn how to powerfully co-create with the universe. I will cover everything from turning your setbacks into triumphs, and my favorite, living your soul's purpose. Of course, I'll be connecting you with spirit, your guides, and the favorite one, of course, is your loved ones on the other side. If you're ready to truly stop spinning circles, and you're ready to harness the power to co-create an authentic life with spirit, then I hope you join me every week for Spirited Straight Talk. Hi, everyone. This is Deb Shepard with, of course, Dana.
Hello.
Director of Deb, Everything Deb. What's really great today is we have a guest that I truly adore. And I've been on her podcast, which is called The Psychic Story, which we're going to talk about. And she's across the country from us. Thank goodness that we
Yes,
can do
you're
this.
all the way on the East Coast, aren't you?
Ohio, yes.
Oh, Ohio.
Weren't you in Georgia?
I was. I moved from Georgia to Ohio, and I split my time. But yeah, I'm in Ohio right now.
What part of Ohio?
Cincinnati.
Yeah,
we're getting into this before we even intro her, but
that's okay. We get to know each other. Well, I lived in Westerville, which is north of Columbus, Ohio. So my daughter was born there, but that's really cool. Let's talk about that. But what I enjoy is that Nichole has a background in what we do, but also she has a regular, job. She's in corporate America, highly educated, and all those things. But we really want to kind of go into the spiritual stuff. But I think Dana's going to read a little bit about your bio so we can share with the audience who you are.
Yes, because Nichole is fabulous. We just love her. So she has been on a spiritual path and journey for her entire life. And she's going to share a little bit more about that and what happened when before birth. This was way prior to birth, what her experience was that she remembers.
Which to me, I love this stuff.
So it started at a really early age, and time and dimension returned after she was incarnated, and she started to remember all these things. But she also holds a Bachelor of Science degree in communications from James Madison University. She's also a certified Reiki master, a certified meditator, and she hosts the amazing podcast that Deb talked about. It is top 20 spiritual podcast. It's called A Psychic Story. It is a supernatural podcast all about supernatural matters.
That is the top 20, girl, you're a rock star.
Yes.
I mean, that's hard to get these days. So you should be patting yourself on the back for sure.
Her mission is to help others not feel alone in their spiritual journeys and to have a better understanding of their own path and psychic abilities so that they can live in alignment with their truth and purpose. And we have a podcast director. Her name is Emily that we work with. And she reached out to Nichole. This has been probably a year and a half ago now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun.
Right? I know. So probably a year and a half ago, when Deb and Nichole got together when it was time in Nichole's world to record a podcast, and things aligned, and they were able to record a podcast all about dreams and dream interpretation. And they had fun. And then Nichole did a little reading afterwards that Deb still talks about.
Yeah, it was good. and I can be judgmental when I get reading. So you hit the mark.
And you have a way also of wording things and delivering messages that resonates, that really, I guess.
Well, I think you get to the point. I mean, when the fact that you have a communications degree says a lot about how you speak. And
truth.
Yeah, the truth, very authentic and very much welcoming voice. It's very calming, and I can hear the story. You're easy to listen to.
Well, thank you, ladies. Man, you just me up so much. Thanks for having me finally.
Yeah. So I have a few people in my life that I've worked with that said that they remember before they incarnated. I do not remember that. And I was much older in life when I realized I could do the things I do today. But can you just share with the audience about how that beginning story, what you saw and what you felt and how you came into this world.
Yeah, no, thank you again for having me. I love you ladies as well. So I want to say I was about 4 years old, and I remember very clearly I was laying in my bed and my dad was tucking me in at night, and he said to me, you know, when we pick who we want to be when we come into this world, and we pick our parents. And now granted, a lot of people are like, 4 years old, he's telling you this, but this is also in the 70s. So for those that remember, that spirituality was like having this resurgence. So a lot of people were like dabbling in it and reincarnation and all these things. So he's like sharing with me what he had read earlier that day. And I just remember saying to him, yeah, I know all about that. And he was just like, what, wait, tell me about it. And so it was, I guess, because my memories were just so fresh, and somebody actually thought to ask me about it. And I very clearly recall, like, I was sitting, it was like I was nowhere at once and everywhere at the same time. I would describe it as space right now, right? And I didn't have a body, a physical sense of anything. And I remember looking down at Earth, and there was this little girl playing, and it was almost like a movie where like the clouds are parting, and then there's this lawn, and this little girl's playing. And I just, in my mind, said, or my consciousness, that's who I want my mom to be. And there was this whole flash of just a bunch of different decisions all instantaneously. And I meant to like step forward, or went to step forward. And the next thing I heard was this, no, not yet. And I turned around. And by the time I turned around, I then heard, yes, you're ready now. It's time. And I was just like shooting down to Earth. So then, and I was telling my dad all this. Of course, there were certain words that at the time, at the age, I wasn't necessarily able to explain all this to him. But so that was interesting. And then the next morning, of course, my mom's making me breakfast, and she's like, Dad told me like what you said, and can you tell me a little bit about it? And so she was asking me questions like, all right, well, there's no way, like, this child probably knows, but, well, what else do you remember? And I told her that I remembered being born, that there was this bright light as I was obviously, being birthed. And it was like, I just couldn't see. I was extremely cold. And the next memory that I had in my brain was, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm here again. What did I get myself into? And
what the heck?
Yeah, what the heck? It was just like the number of doctors, what my room looked like, all of these things. And so my parents and my family, luckily, they were very open. And they were like, okay, well, she can't make all of this up. She also is creative, but she's a sensitive child. She's had these experiences. So I had these adult conversations with adults as a child that I don't think a lot of people necessarily probably had growing up, right? And I just thought a lot of people were like this, that a lot of people remembered where they came from and had this inherent knowing of why and what and everything. And then I very quickly realized that that's not the case, and that I had to keep a lot of that information to myself at a very young age. So
did you suppress this over time? Because to me, having that awakening at that age, I know for some children, they do know, they're very sensitive, but then they get to be teenage years or a little bit older, and they start closing that ability down again, that opening. Did you go through any of that?
I didn't close it down. Luckily, there were some things as I was getting older spiritual things that I experienced. And I was like, I don't know if I ever want to do that again. That part scared me. It was almost like the universe was showing me opportunity and giving me the ability of exploring if I would so choose. And some of them I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. No, thank you. Others. But what I did do, Deb, is I decided I had a very different selves I would show people, right? Like when I would go to school, I was the student and I was the friend, and I wasn't the person who could maybe sense other things and emotions and all of that so intensely. And that then translated as I got older, of course, went to college and got a job. And it's almost like this dual personality of sorts, where my friends and family knew what I did on the side, and I was totally open and wanted to talk about it more. But then there was this hesitation of what people would think if I spoke my truth to them, like, what is she doing? Because there's all these myths and misconceptions out there about our line of work and what it is that we do.
We call those archetypes. You kind of change your hat to fit the situation you're in. And when I teach that in the Souls Contracts class, it's basically we take on different personality traits to blend into our life to be able to manage our life. And it seems like that you got that on early in life, that this is how I behave in these situations.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And that too, it didn't make it easier. My dad was in the hotel business at the time. So I had moved about 22 times before I was in college. So
wow.
every 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years max, if I was lucky, I would be moving and reintroducing myself and reinventing myself and feeling out situations of people and places. And so I very much was able to become a chameleon in that respect.
Was that a positive or negative? Because being able to fit into situations is great, but do you feel like sometimes it pushed down a little bit of your authentic self that you couldn't be truly Nichole?
It pushed me out of my comfort zone in other areas. So being a very sensitive child, and when I say sensitive, like just absorbing all of, the emotions around you and not necessarily knowing how to express it, all of that, my persona was I'm strong, I'm direct, I can flip on a dime, that sort of thing. So that absolutely, at the same time, I think if I didn't have those experiences, who knows?
Right.
I definitely would not be the person that I am today, which I do have that confidence because a lot of it was fake it till I made it.
Did you watch the movie Soul?
No, I haven't.
It's always when we talk about this subject, and a couple of things you said actually brought that to mind, because it's almost like it, and they did choose to go back. Like they had to, the souls had to attain certain things and then pick their archetypes before they came down. Like, are you going to be an empath, or are you going to be a narcissist, or are you going to be,
Right.
like they picked their archetypes before they incarnated, and then they jumped down.
Yeah.
Like, almost like what you're describing. Yeah. So it's just interesting that you recall that. And that's a lot of what we teach and what Deb believes. That movie actually kind of nailed a lot of things
that you and I were talking about. And people said, did someone follow you around, Deb, and talk about these things?
So I got that same picture of you, like, they're following you to figure out how this actually worked.
You're number 22. When you watch the movie, you're going to be number 22. But anyway, another personal question just came to mind. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a sister that's younger. We're exactly 9.5 years apart. So I'm almost like a second mother to her, more than a older sister.
And is she a sensitive child too?
Yes, she is. We're sensitive in different ways. She definitely has the abilities and all of that.
Okay. Well, great. So I think the one thing that, because you teach as well and you share other people's stories, which is so powerful, because when you allow us to share our stories, it lets people connect. And all of our stories are a little bit different. Like I was much older when I was able to understand this topic, even though throughout my life I would have a little taste of it. There's all these little appetizers as I went along, and then dove into it. And now that I've really dove into it, I think the biggest thing is what people do to stay on track when they're, when they get into the spiritual world, or they get into the sensitivity and doing readings and understanding their soul's path. We go back and forth. There's almost like, you get into it and you pull away, or there's that push and pull. I find one thing is that people have trouble applying what they learn. Like they read all these books and they do readings and they go see psychics, and then the next year they have the same situation. They haven't changed. So how does this go for you? I mean, what we want to talk about basically is the 4 obstacles to spiritual growth. And this is one of the topics. So I kind of went ahead of myself. Do you see this, and what do you encourage people to do if they're not applying what they're learning or what you've told them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. When you first broached the subject, the very first thing that my guides jumped in and said were, oh my gosh, we're very excited that, we want to share this, because people ask all the questions, like you just said, read, what do I do? Go to a psychic. And they're like, exactly what it is that you need to be doing and how to do it. They're just excuses. Correct. And they're excuses because we are living this life, spiritual beings having this human experience, to learn all the things in order for us to have the spiritual growth. But we apply that in a lot of ways, and we use them as excuses to be like, well, I'm not sure, I don't know. There's all these external factors, of course. That was the first thing that they definitely said. So I wanted to get that out of the way, because then most people are going to be like, okay, well, then what do you mean from there? So if I know, then what does that look like? And, there's other steps that you can take.
Can I say something though?
Yes.
Because I think in watching Deb teach, failing to apply what you learn. I mean, that's where we're at, is that we don't apply what we learn. But do you guys find that there are just some people out there that don't have it and think that they do? I mean, I know your belief system is that everyone can tap into intuition.
I think they're kind of two different questions for me, and definitely want your input, Nichole. I think some people are afraid to try the new tools because they know how to manage the current situation and they don't know what's going to happen if they make changes. The second thing is, I think that people sometimes, I think it goes to the ego, which I love the ego, but some people think, well, I had this one experience, so I must be this way. So what do you think, Nichole, on those two topics?
Well, I believe for sure that we all have intuitive psychic abilities. They're all just at different degrees. Deb, we talked about this on an episode you were on, but ultimately, I do also think that we confuse sometimes what we want to do with what our purpose is.
Yes.
And so in that respect, that's kind of where, people get stuck in, as far as then what are the next steps? How do I apply this? And failing to apply it, because, and what you just mentioned, Debbie, they have the experience. It doesn't mean that that's necessarily even their talent or what they should be doing, but the universe is showing you what you can and can't do, and also opportunity to allow you to then decide if you want to pursue it or if you want to adjust. Right. I know that was a lot, but it was just kind of framing it, because
it's great. It's because that door opens, and people think sometimes too, there's only one door, but the universe will open other doors. But it's also, are they willing to go through that door? Because that's what I find, is that people are hesitant of, can I control what's going to happen? Or there's that fear, the fear, and the fear is the reason we're here. And so I think where people just keep asking the questions, I think part of it, are they looking for a different answer? Or when they hear the same thing over and over, they're still not trusting the process, is what I'm getting right now. So they're still wondering, is that really my only choice?
Right. Yeah. Fear is a big one. And fear is because you mentioned this, they don't want to change necessarily, or they're afraid of, if they do change, then what does that look like? And I've gotten this a lot lately. And the answer that the universe has been sharing is that, how do you know that what the universe is going to be offering isn't better? And the reason you're supposed to go through that change is because you decided that at some point you need to. So you can put it off inevitably, but you're going to have to get there at some point, whether it's now, this lifetime, or another lifetime.
And I would say, if you don't do it this time, you can come back. They go, no. I go, well, jump into the closet. Dive in. And I think we all have our fears. It's easy to be the reader because it's not my life, it's theirs. But so I'm less attached, and I'm sure that's how you feel as well. But it's, how many times do they have to be in pain before they really want to make that change? And that's up to them.
Exactly. I totally agree.
The next question we were thinking about, thinking if you've done it all, like, I've done everything, I don't need to learn anything new. And my one phrase with that is, when people say that to me, I always say I'm going to move away because lightning may strike. So what do you do when people say, oh, I know it all, I've done it all, there's nothing more for me to learn, I've studied that? And I get that, where people have done a lot of studying, and probably a lot more than me. What do you share with people, or what is your take on that?
Yeah, I love that you brought this up, because to me, I think that is what life is. It's all about change. If you're not moving, if you're not changing, then you're not living, you're not alive. And so, just like you said, step away, lightning, but it also means that it goes back again to your purpose. And so if you have, and you know everything, then what is your purpose and why are you here? Right. Yeah. That's another kind of way to reframe it. And there's always the way I like to look at it in my 9-to-5 job, in, people communications, not spirit communications, is that
you're an all-around communicator.
Right, exactly. I communicate on all sides. But is that, again, it's that growth point of, you need to be making that change. You need to be going in that direction, because otherwise there's no movement, there's no forward piece of it. So you can look at it from a spiritual standpoint, you can look at it from a professional career, your general life, but also it's the way you put a spin on it. So you may have read about Reiki, and you may have studied, you may be a Reiki master, but maybe there's a way to apply Reiki to other things that doesn't currently exist. And that is part of your purpose, right? Yeah. So I think that it's, to me, it would be very sad if people are losing that curiosity and that passion to want to learn more, and saying that they know it all or have studied it all.
And I think for some people, I found this too, when they say it, I feel like they want to have a step above. Like, I'm not here to compete. I mean, everyone has their journey. Everyone has different knowledge and abilities, but I feel like sometimes it's a competition. And for me, I say, if I'm still here, I'm not done learning. I don't have it all. And I hope in 20 more years, I teach differently than I do now, because that means there's growth. And I sort of laugh a little bit too. You know, when you've done this or known about this since you were 3, I bet that has shown up in your life a little bit, where people, is it like almost a comparison of what they've experienced too, do you think?
Well, I think because when I was younger, I was so amazed that not everyone had this information or this inherent knowledge, especially adults who are supposed to teach me. It's almost like the reverse situation in a lot of ways. Like, they taught me how to live life and stay alive. And then I am explaining where I was before I was alive, type of thing. So there's that duality. But I would say that my knowing is, and what I had said to people who I encounter in that situation, is that we are all so unique. Now, none of us have the same DNA, spiritually or physically or what have you. And so from that standpoint, your, again, unique spin in how you're going to present things, to me, that removes the competition, because how am I to be on the same plane level of anybody? We're all of God, we're all of the universe, but then yet we're all so individual and unique that, to me, there shouldn't be any competition.
I love that. And I love the word that you said, inherited. That's the word I'm actually going to steal. I'm telling you that right here on the podcast, because it's a great way to understand that we all incarnate with different personalities. So you inherited this and you brought it forward in your life. And I think it's a great way for people to kind of manage how this happens to us too.
Yeah. And then you inherit it, and then there's inherently. So I inherently just know things because of all of my past life experiences. I may not have experienced it in this lifetime, but it's brought me up to this moment. And so inherently, and then inherited. Exactly. Right. So you said it beautifully.
I love it. I'm definitely going to use that. So I'll give you credit. Too.
And that's kind of what we were talking about. Deb, we're working on a little mini dream interpretation course that you can grab on Deb's website. That's free. And in that little mini course, we were looking at this today, is the fact that you are bringing all of this with you, the archetypes, you inherit all of this and you just bring it down with you. And it's a collective unconscious where you can go in and you can access the Akashic records and you can kind of download that information as far as where somebody has been who doesn't have the ability to know. Like, downloading that information, being able to tie those two things together is really cool.
Does that mean we're bringing baggage with us? I hope it's really the nice kind. I hope it's a top brand and it doesn't get thrown out somewhere by baggage handlers. But you do, we always talk about what we bring with us. I hear this a lot, and you may hear this as well. They feel like when they have their family, well, you feel like your family is more in line, but a lot of people go, how did I get born in this family? We're nothing alike. And Dana and I have felt that for sure. And a lot of my clients. But you feel like you got more aligned with some family.
Yeah, no, it's, as you even just asked me, that I got chills again, because I'm reminded constantly it's on my mom and dad's side. So my dad's family, all of the women and even the men are very, like, they've seen things, they've talked to dead people, they've had dreams, they've had crazy life or death experiences where spirits interfered and intervened to keep them. So there's that. And then my mom is Catholic, or her side of the family. And my grandmother was very intuitive and psychic, but she was the one primarily that was like, don't talk to people about this, they're going to lock you up, kind of thing. Because, that was then, but way back then. So I say that because I think that part of it is being a light worker and being a healer. Spirit put me in that position to show me, if I didn't know all of those things, and I would have had a different experience when I got older, like you did, Deb, but by showing me, hey, everybody's struggling because they're shutting it down. I could see it real time. And, I protected mine, but I still turned some things off, right? That allowed me to have that now, where they said, you need to be able to have a podcast and give a platform to people to share their story, because people are still in fear for different reasons, whether their family supported them, whether or not, all the things.
No, I love it. And you really chose, I think next time, Dana, we're going to choose a different family.
Oh God, for sure. That is so true.
We're going to choose another source, but because I know a lot of people think I'm done, I'm not going to come back. And I feel like there may be times where people need a break, but coming back, I think, is part of our soul's journey, and having those experiences. We're going to use your guides to help choose our family next time.
Okay. I'll help you choose.
Yeah, that would be great. So, the big thing I think we also work with people is their value. So believing that they are worthy of tuning in and being connected with the universe and having their intuition guide them. Do you come across this often, or how do you help people with this?
Yeah, I think that part of it, it's values and it's confidence. And then people, when you get past that, the obstacles of the fear, and you decide to kind of lean into it, and then you're in, like I call it, the psychic closet, you're crawling out a little bit and you're like, is it safe? What's going on?
Absolutely.
Then you're a little bit more shy about it. And so there's that confidence where, so you may know, but no one's given you that boost to push you to say, no, you have it. You really do. And part of, then it goes back to the first point that you made, all the exploring and the whatever. So we kind of get into that cycle, but that's what I would say, is that it is just recognize that it's okay to give yourself that grace in learning and becoming more comfortable. But the hardest part is just taking that first step out of the closet to say, this is who I am. And I may not know it all, but I want to explore it.
And I think what goes along with what you're saying is, when people like us that do this type of work, we are born sensitive. And those sensitive individuals sometimes feel beat up in life, may have been bullied, may have attracted people that were very controlling and didn't let you have a voice. So when they try to go into this type of work, they're working not only on their past history of how they were treated, but then trusting the universe that we can't touch.
Right. No, great point.
So having that alignment. And so we bring so many different things together to kind of overcome or manage it, or feel our confidence, like you said earlier.
And value, and also receiving. You talk about receiving a lot as well, like about being worthy, but also worthy of receiving this type of.
Well, whether it's money or support or the universe, because most people that are healers or sensitive are big givers, and they don't know how to receive or ask for help. So it's shifting that energy, in my perspective, of being okay to receive.
Yes, no, absolutely. That worthiness and that value, if you haven't been taught it, and that is part of your path to learn, then it's being open to receiving. But how are you, open to doing that unless you start to believe in yourself?
Correct. Yeah. I guess we believe in ourselves, huh? It's taking some work to get here. What I think is really, I was going to laugh at this other one, was being something you're not. I look at people that start this path or have been on this path, and the clothes that they will wear, people look at me and think I'm just a corporate America person. I don't wear this woo stuff other than my mala beads or something. But sometimes it's a little bit funny that people will act based on what they think we're supposed to look like versus really authentically just being whoever you are, whatever that looks like. But I think there's a confusion sometimes about how we should behave, or this is not really who I am. So I believe that if you're in business or any other aspect, a mother, a father, whatever, that you can use your intuition and it doesn't have to look a certain way. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that that's some of the biggest myths and misconceptions is society, whether you had a family that supported you or didn't, right? Whether you were open to sharing where you were in your spiritual journey at a young age or later on. And then but because we think of psychics as a 1-800-psychic number, how we're portrayed and, the movies, like I'll still never forget Ghost when, Whoopi Goldberg had that experience. But at the same time, like some people do, it's just misperceptions of how we are. And so that's part I think of, and it goes back to the archetypes that you were saying back at the very beginning, is then we mold ourselves into who we think we need to be because we're trying to fit in and blend in and not be burnt at the stake of all these other things. And we probably were, some of us probably were in past lives, and that's also our hesitation. So that's the baggage. Someone put on social media, why were we scared of witches? Why weren't we scared of the people that burned the witches, right?
Right.
Seriously. Yeah. Have you seen the movie Practical Magic?
I love that movie. Yes.
That is my all-time favorite movie. And the reason I bring that up is because I kind of feel like sometimes I live in a world of ghost/practical magic.
Yes.
Like the blend of the two things, and, just understanding that world, I think. And the fear of being burned at the stake.
Yeah. Well, also, and you were saying this, and I want to add to it and see what you have to say, is that some people are fear-based getting into this because I think they think we have all the answers. Like I would say, there's not a psychic that I've ever seen win the lottery. So we don't have these superpowers. We just have an intuition and we're guided. And I want people to use it in their everyday life instead of using the dogma that we're taught in life. So I think that's adds on to that we think that we have to be something different versus it's just our intuition. I mean, is that what you think people are misconfused sometimes?
Yeah, I think though, too, if you think about the way that we were supposed to, so the reason why we forget is because when we're born here physically, they wanted our radar and all these other things kind of like cut off a little bit because that is the human experience, all the things, right, that we're perceiving, this matrix, although it's not reality. So it's almost like, to me, my intuition is like breathing. So, but we make it a superpower, and it goes back to that myths and misconceptions because we forget that we all have it, and it's actually simple once you're tapped into it. So it isn't like just for lottery and flying and doing all of these, again, superpower things. It is a natural part of who we are. So that to me is kind of where when you were talking, that's what popped in my head. The angels were like, remind people it's not superpowers, it's not supernatural, just the natural, not yet explained.
I love that. That is probably the best wrap up of this because I think the clarity for people is, well, am I going to get negative stuff, or am I going to have fear, or what am I going to see things I don't want to see? I mean, there's so many different questions that they go into that fear. And I think that's a great way to say that it's a natural ability. It's not a supernatural ability. And I think I'm going to steal that one too.
Yeah.
You can borrow it as much as you want.
I guess supernatural. Yeah. I mean, if we started flying all of a sudden, that would definitely be supernatural. But
so obviously, since the age of 3, you've been developing this language. Thank you very much.
Oh.
And it is true. I think it's taking the woo-woo and the fear to let people know that if you're on this path or you're afraid to get on this path, that for us, for you and I, it's been very much of a blessing. It's created a knowing and a sense of peace, at least for me. And I feel like when I do readings, there's also a sense of peace for individuals, or we're going to fear. Is that what you feel too? Or how do you?
Yeah. The angels gave me a little bit of like an analogy when you were talking. They were saying it's kind of like, so we talk about the faucet, like people are like, well, turn it on, turn it off, this faucet, right? But when you evolve over time, you can turn it on and turn it off, and you can make it turn it, as you guys, because you're shaking your head, Deb. So it's almost like they showed smell. Think about if you were not born with a sense of smell, and all of a sudden you started to be able to smell slight things, like here's your mom's baking cookies, the grass has been mowed, that sort of thing. And then stronger and stronger that smell then evolves to where it's all the things, and you have your taste buds, and then you can taste. So they're saying like it shouldn't be scary because, again, that natural ability, as you start to learn and evolve about all the things and the practices, you're going to have that turned on and amped up a little bit, and you're going to be able to deal with it. It's not going to be so jarring for most people, right? There are those, though, that are supposed to have those big experiences to jolt them into it. But for the most part, it's very, very rare in that case, right?
Totally agree. And we were laughing because even in dreams, like if your guides are trying to talk to you and you keep ignoring it, they're going to start really bringing your attention. So you'll stop and ask, like, what is this about? And yeah, their intention is not to make it fearful. It's just, you're not listening, and we want to give you the 2x4. So how many 2x4s? Yeah. We want to talk about how people can find you and your great podcast. But is there any advice for people that are maybe just starting out on this realm of spirituality and dipping their toe and trying to see, what's real for them? And I always tell my guests and clients, I have a perception of things, but it doesn't mean that everything I know is right. So listen to other people and take away what resonates, because I think we all have a little bit of a twist of how we give messages. But what is it that you want to tell people that are just starting on this path?
Well, I think we said it, but just to reinforce it, is that there's nothing to be afraid of. That fear is an external perception that we have that actually really doesn't exist. So by just kind of slowly taking those baby steps, stepping into what you feel that is right, because again, the guide said at the very beginning, you know exactly what it is that you need to do. You're just hesitant. You're putting all these things up for excuses. So I would say that that would be the biggest thing, is just remove that veil of fear and lean into it a little bit more and step into that power, because it's yours. And again, you are so unique from everybody else. No one is like you because of all the things. So what are you waiting for? It's like, stop playing small.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that is that people play small because they think it's safe, but then they don't feel fulfilled, and they find other things to do to think that's fulfilling them, but they're still just being distracted.
Exactly.
So
You are awesome.
Yes.
You are a
Thank you,
fantastic
ladies.
guest, so thank you.
Yeah.
And your website is www.apsychicstory.com.
Yes.
So you can find Nichole's website with all her podcasts there, but I know you're on all the podcast listening platforms as well. So iTunes, I'm sure, Google Podcasts, you're probably everywhere. With the top 20 podcasts, you have to be.
Yes, well, it's on Apple. So yeah, most of my listeners are on Apple for sure, but there's also Spotify, Stitcher, basically whatever you like to listen to your podcast, you can find me. As Dana said, psychicstory.com. That's also the handle for Instagram and Facebook. So I made it easy for you to find me. And by the way, I cannot take credit for the branding. It truly was my guides and angels. They were like, this is what you need to get. And it was all available. So they were right, as always.
and do you do readings?
I do readings. I usually do them in the evenings on the East Coast time, because I do have a full-time job, but I offer intuitive readings. For the most part, I've been getting a lot of people that want to find out what their psychic abilities are, or are at that stage where they're like, I know I just need that push a little bit more. And then I help them kind of tune into what that looks like. So those are usually the majority of the readings, but I also offer long distance Reiki healing sessions. I don't do those as often, but yeah.
Well, I adore you. I don't get impressed with too many people, and you impress me. So
Oh, well, you impressed me, obviously. And I feel like we were sisters in another lifetime, lady. So we found each other. It just took us a while.
but we're back again.
The team is back again.
Yes.
Thank you once again. And we will be talking to you, I'm sure, really soon.
All right. Thanks, ladies. I appreciate you. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Each Monday is a new episode of Spirited Straight Talk. Make sure you hit follow so you don't miss any of the guidance or bonus episodes. Your experience at the show means a lot to us, and we would love for you to leave a review or let us know about more topics you would like Deb to explore. You can also follow Deb on social media and connect with her website at debshepard.com. That's DEBSHEPPARD.com. If you want to join Deb on one of the shows or have a reading from her on the show, you can submit a request on the podcast page of her website. Thank you again, and see you next week.